It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me, the smartest guy in the room, Mr. Michael Becker. How are you?
Hey, Paul, doing good. Getting ready to get out of town for summer vacation here in a week or so. So looking forward to summer being here.
Did you even take any trips during COVID times, or were you just locked down?
Last summer did a trip up to Colorado and got out of the heat for a little bit, and we did another trip to the beach in Florida. So was able to go. It really ruined my Hawaiian vacation that I had. I know everyone's crying a tear for me not getting to go to Hawaii last year, but I really did screw up my Hawaii plans, unfortunately. So going to try to get Hawaii in the summer as well. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, Hawaii is always a fun time for everybody who likes palm trees and coconuts and beautiful coral reefs and sunsets in Hawaii. So I certainly do appreciate good thoughts about Hawaii. So we asked Mike last time about what's going on in this crazy market. And so we asked Mike all these tough questions because, as you know, Michael is an owner-operator of multifamily properties. And, prior to becoming an owner of multifamily properties, he was a banker. He was a commercial real estate banker working for one of the largest commercial real estate banks in the country. He led his division for a number of years and decided, hey, listen, I think I'm going to get into this full time because I know as much as the smartest person in multifamily, I think I can do it. And so with the experience and the strength that he had from lending on lots of these apartments, he transitioned into multifamily. So we ask Mike a lot of these great questions because he has the knowledge that you want to get, and we certainly do appreciate Mike stepping up to answer some of these questions. So we had a question that came in from Crystal Cove, California, which I think I know where that's at between, say, Newport Beach and Laguna, California. So this was a good one because it kind of talks, if you're a brand new person, it kind of hopefully eases your mind a little bit. Michael, when first getting into multifamily, what was the biggest mistake you made? How did you overcome it? And what did you learn? Michael?
Yeah, I think the single biggest mistake we made, and we made it a few times, was we kind of mismatch our maturity of the loan with the business plan, Paul. So specifically meaning we took out some long-term fixed rate debt on some stuff that we thought we'd own for maybe 3 to 5 years, and we put a 10-year loan on it. And kind of the thought process at the time was that rates were about as low as we've seen in any time in recent memory. The interest rates, Paul, if you recall back when I started getting going 8 or 10 years ago, were all the way down to about 5%. And the lender started loosening up, and it was great because we get a whole year of interest only. So you do a 10-year term fixed at 5% and get a whole year of interest only. And the thought process was we're going to go, add some value, and 2-3 years down the road when we're ready to go sell it, the rates should be higher, and I'm going to go sell it. And these loans were assumable. And the next buyer will come in and take over my mortgage and get a below market interest rate. It's going to be accretive to my situation, and I'll make money, but the loan's going to make me money. And so the reality turned out to be the exact opposite of that. So, what happened was, 5% went to 4%. Now it's, 3%, maybe bounced up a little bit from the bottom. And 1 year of interest only went to 3 years of interest only, went to 5 years or 6 years of interest only. And so what I thought was going to be an asset turned out to be a liability. And there's a very key provision on most of these fixed rate mortgages is they contain something either called yield maintenance or defeasance prepayment penalties. So it's a formula basically when the lender, typically in our case it was Fannie Mae at the time, but Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae make a loan, they go out and securitize a loan. So they sell it to Wall Street and someone buys it like a bond, and then Fannie Mae guarantees a repayment. That bondholder wants to know that they're going to get, a constant source of income. So if you're able to, if you want to prepay the loan, you have to, likely make a very large prepayment penalty, and it's kind of a function of how much time's left on the loan and what your note rate is relative to kind of the current interest rate environment. So if the rates go down, it's like inverse relation with your prepay. So if the interest rates go down, your prepayment penalty goes up. because they're going to have to go buy a bond at a lower yield. They need to have more money to then replace that kind of similar yield. So we, got stuck, millions, tens and tens of millions of dollars on yield maintenance by making that mistake. So that's really it. I think just being, if you're going to have a business plan, you want to get in and out in, 2 to 3 years. It generally speaking, and I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but generally speaking, I think it's much more wise to have a little bit more flexibility within your prepayment penalty and let the next buyer come in and put their own debt on it, whatever that might be at that moment in time, versus trying to make them assume your mortgage or force a situation. Sometimes that might work in your favor, but more times than not, you're better off just letting them assume that mortgage. And, if your business plan to come in, renovate and push the rents and increase the value, the bridge loan or something with flexible prepay is likely the better target. Now, if you want to own it, it's your own money, or you just know you want to own it for 7 years or 10 years, you could certainly go the other way. I'm not saying there's necessarily anything wrong with a longer term fixed rate. Just try to match that with the business plan a little bit better and try not to get too cute. So, the simpler you make it, generally the better. We were trying to get a little cute on the front end, and fortunately, we're able to still hit, home run after home run in spite of that. But it would have been even better if we didn't have those yield maintenance prepays to eat along the way, Paul.
As bankers, we're always conservative and we want to lock something up for as long as possible. And sometimes you got to be a little bit of I don't think the word is a gunslinger, but you have to understand about risk. And coming back to, Michael being a banker and some of his advisors were like, well, why don't you go lock this in and fix the rate for as long as you can, because interest rates are probably not going to go down any farther than they are right now. But that was the opposite. They went even farther down, as Michael explained, and that yield maintenance penalty went up, exponentially higher than what you would think a prepayment penalty would be. So just like what Michael did, is it, yeah, he had to pay it right now, but he's not making that same mistake again, unless it's a legacy asset and he wants to keep it for 10 or 20 years. He'll maybe lock the deal up for that period of time. But what he's doing is either doing, I think, bridge loans right now, or he's doing just kind of straight adjustable rates for Freddie Mac that gives him a more convenient prepayment penalty exit.
Or if you do want to go the fixed rate route, you just want to do it, maybe shorten your maturity a little bit. Maybe do a 7-year term instead of a 10-year term. Take 3 years off that yield maintenance, and then 3 years will mean a lot of money if you want to go sell it. So something you said a long time, Paul, that I plagiarized many times in my life is when you own apartments, you kind of own them in dog years, right? Every year of ownership feels like 7. And the older and smaller the apartment building, the more true that statement is, right? So if you're getting in these deals, you're getting started. There's a deal I think I just saw that hit the market again. It's a 32-unit deal in Garland. And I remember I made a loan on that thing like 11 or 12 years ago. You brought it to me. I was working on the bank. And we put a loan on it. And I remember this guy who bought it put a fixed rate mortgage on it. And I just thought that was kind of a mistake. I put a loan on it as a bridge loan. The guy who bought it from him put a fixed rate mortgage on it. I thought that was a mistake. And then a couple years later, they sold it. And I think a couple years later, they sold it again. And then the last guy who bought it put a 10-year mortgage on it or something like that, Freddie Mac, a small balance loan. And now they're selling it again. So I don't know how much of the profit of that deal over the last 3 or 4 trades over the last decade have been eaten up with lender prepays, but I'm sure it's enough to feed a whole village for a whole year somewhere many times over. So there's different levels of risk, and sometimes we're starting out. The business could be it's really, really simple in its principles and its concepts, but there's it's not always easy, and there's a lot of nuances along the way, and thinking about prepayment risk and am I really going to own this thing forever? And when you get in these deals and you're buying your first 30-unit deal and you're kind of starting, those are kind of like your starter properties. And in my experience, when you get in those deals, one or two things are going to happen. You get in the deal and you absolutely hate it, and it sucks. You can't wait to sell it and never do it again. Or the second thing that happens is you actually love it. You love this business and you want to sell it and do something bigger because you want to scale up. So usually these little starter properties when you're starting out tend not to be the deals that you own forever and ever, even though that might be your mentality because you sold your rent houses, you want to buy a 30-unit deal and you think you'll just run it forever. But usually one of those two things happen. So I think on your first deal or two, having some optionality and some flexibility on your prepayments is of utmost important. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's certainly a mistake that's cost us, tens of millions of dollars along the way for us and our investors. So fortunately, we've been able to be very successful in spite of that mistake. But you're right, that's a mistake I've learned real good.
Talk to me. We're bankers by trade, and talk to me a little bit about, a lot of people have been just sucking the air out of the universe to try to get non-recourse financing. They're doing whatever they can to do. But both of us worked for recourse bank loans, and tell us a little bit about the benefits, because you've done a recourse bank loan or two in your lifetime on larger deals and some smaller deals. But tell me a little bit about, tell me about the positives and maybe the one negative of doing it like a recourse bank loan.
Generally speaking, I try to be allergic to bank recourse, because that's really what can ultimately come checkmate you in some of these deals and bring you down if you got a lot of recourse. And that's certainly what happened to a lot of my clients when I was a banker back in the bad old days. 12, 13 years ago. That's what kind of got a lot of guys in trouble, was that a lot of contingent liabilities, meaning they personally guaranteed a lot of loans. When these dominoes started falling, they had to file bankruptcy and get out of it. So that was kind of ingrained into me right before I started getting into ownership of real estate, is not to sign recourse. So really, we didn't sign recourse on anything, and I haven't signed a lot of recourse, but a couple of deals we signed some partial recourse to get improve and enhance some of the terms. And it really, Paul, it's just a calculated risk that if you sign a little bit of recourse on a deal. I'm personally out of the mindset I want to go, fully leverage a deal, get 80% leverage, sign personal recourse to, really kind of amp it up and take a bunch of risk on. But, if we're going to be a moderately leveraged loan at, 65, 70% leverage, something like that, and I can sign recourse versus going to get maybe like a debt fund loan that's going to layer a bunch of complexity and structure is what we'd call it, a lot of structure to the loan. So having like spring and lock boxes where they could trap all your cash collections, to have a bajillion additional covenants where it's really restrictive, where they make you spend a ton of money on their lawyer, plus a bunch of extra work on your lawyer to put all this like structure in it and your loan, where if you can sometimes just go sign a little bit of partial recourse, maybe that makes all that go away, because the bank has a secondary source of repayment, and you maybe get a little better pricing and certainly a lot less kind of cost and headache on the front end. That's been some math that we've been trying to do in our head here. Where's kind of the BS factor, outweigh kind of signing maybe a little bit of recourse on a pretty low risk deal in our mind. And, time or two, we've actually signed a little bit of recourse to get away from some complex, debt fund kind of loan structures. So I don't know if that answers your question, but those are some things I think about when we're making those decisions.
Without a doubt. And so I'm trying to maybe convey to some folks that are brand new into the business, go back to banking. How it used to be is we used to take a collateral interest now on the property, but in your personal financial statement. But there's a benefit of doing that too. There's a lot of flexibility on the front end, but there's a lot greater flexibility on the back end, especially if you cannot complete your plan of what you think you can do within 3 years. If you do a bridge loan and you need an extension, a bridge lender sometimes is not going to be as flexible as your regional bank or community bank or credit union lending company or lending group is going to be. So if the world does come to an end, you certainly want to be advised that these switches on lending, they don't turn off like a dimmer switch, that they start off high and they start to turn down real slow. It is an on or off switch. We either are lending or we are not lending. So just know that in the future, that if you find yourself with a hard maturity coming up, just be very careful that you have a loan that you could get some additional time in place. All right, I'm off my soapbox. Hey, can I brag a little bit about you and what you showed me internally
sure.
from your group over at SPI, which I think is pretty damn interesting, because, like the cereal, I want to be like Mike. What's Mikey doing? And so I think this is probably one of the most dynamic presentations that a lot of people will not understand, but it's what you and SPI have done, and it is the difference between doing an on-market or marketed deal and an off-marketed deal. And can you kind of walk me through the numbers on that one? Because I think a lot of people want to get to where you're at, but they don't know how to do it. And so not everybody can do it if they're starting out, but let's talk about where you're at right now, then work backwards.
Yeah. So what Paul's talking about is I'm trying to convince a gentleman to do some business with us, and he's got a large 1031 exchange of places kind of between myself and a competitor of mine out in the marketplace. And I believe I'm the right guy to get the job done, because we've done a bunch of the deals for people in a similar situation, kind of our, we'll call advisory services, to help 1031 buyers get home and buy multifamily properties in Texas when they don't have connections or resources, and they kind of leverage our track record and experience and expertise to get a deal done. And so the competitor I'm going up against does a lot of, one of the comments he made was, what's the difference? He's a very good guy, super nice guy, nothing unethical. I think he's got a good reputation, does good work, and I have a lot of respect for him. But one of the comments he made to the prospect was that, what's the difference? We all see kind of the same deals, and we can kind of deliver it. So, what's the difference between the two of us, because we all kind of see the same deals? Basically saying I can do it a little cheaper and we'll get the same result, was I think what his message was. And so I went back and kind of just did an analysis of the nearly 60 transactions that we've done as either a principal on the advisory side.
60 transactions?
Yeah, just shy of 58 transactions or something like that. I just counted it up. It's been a while since I counted it up. So 50 on the acquisition. So we've done 58 acquisitions on either for ourselves or advisory clients over the last approximately 8 years. And of those, 4 out of the 5 of those were off market. And so 20% were marketed, listed bottom, and 80% were off market. And I had no idea what the ratio was that high, Paul. I never actually come back and counted it up. I figured it was about half and half, maybe a little bit more off market than on market. But actually going through and doing that math, I was amazed to see that it was 80% of our deals were off market, and it was just amazing. I kind of shared that with you, and I think your question was like, how the hell do you do 4 out of 5 deals, nearly 45 to 50 transactions were off market in the last 8 years? How the hell do you do it? I guess was kind of your question, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think a lot of that is, I don't want to be repetitive and talk about stuff we talked about before too much, but a lot of it is kind of respect and trust is kind of earned. And so a lot of it's by doing your first transaction and doing what you say you're going to do, and being honest and transparent and with all the kind of the market participants and the stakeholders in these deals. So the broker is kind of the front line of that, and then they represent the client, the seller. So making sure you kind of communicate what you got going on, your need, your ability, and what you can do, and then following through on what you say you're going to do, and actually following through. And a lot of this is when you all these deals, at some point in time, there's some level of issue that comes up, and virtually any deal, some are pretty small, some are pretty big. I mean, being able to, a lot of people kind of put their head in the sand or try to hide, a lot of the problems that maybe come up. And, I think we do a good job of, maybe trying to explain, if we need a little bit more time, or this happened or that happened, trying to explain the situation. And, if it's a problem that the seller caused me, then we need to kind of share in that problem. And I think that that's kind of fair. If it's a problem that I caused myself, I shouldn't be making my problems the other guy's problems. So, kind of explaining it, stepping up and solving those problems along the way. I think that's a big part of it. And then, kind of overcoming adversity, then, and following through on the transaction. And I think that, further drives trust and confidence within the brokerage community that, anyone can do an easy deal, but when you get a little bit of hair on a deal, or there's something messed up, or the market moved on you in the middle of you trying to get this deal put together, and COVID hit, or who knows, whatever hit, interest rates rose a bunch, and you still step up and do the deal, that really breeds a lot of confidence and trust, and then staying on front of these people on a regular basis. And that's kind of the fine line to walk, is how do you stay relevant and in their face, and communicating with them with the brokerage community without being annoying and overbearing. So it's kind of always a fine line to walk. And, I think we do that better than most, obviously, with the numbers I just quoted you. And
so, I mean, let's kind of walk through what the benefit is of trying to buy these deals off market, or not having them go through the full marketing process of buying it. Maybe on the front side, these properties may be listed, but they don't go to a best and final and best and final and best and final and just jacking these prices up. And you were able to take them, out of the box so they wouldn't be bidded up. I mean, what do you win on something like that? I mean, obviously you get the property, but are you paying the highest price to do that? I mean, what can some people that are newbies kind of learn from that?
Right. So it depends, right, Paul? So well, just because it's off market doesn't necessarily make it a better deal than if it was fully marketed. So I don't want to say that every time an off market deal is better than a marketed deal, because sometimes the marketed deals are turn out to be the better deal than the off market deal. So it's a dynamic, ever evolving marketplace, and it's just always changing. So whatever I tell you today will probably be different 3 or 4 months from now, because 3 or 4 months ago, it was a lot different than what it is at this moment in time. So, it's just always changing and evolving. But so with that said, when I kind of think about it, the way I like to think about what I want to position myself to be, I want to have the first call if it's an off market deal, or I want to have the last call on a marketed deal. So meaning, I'm trying to get a little edge in whatever I do. So, on these off market deals, I want to have kind of first mover advantage, see something, and if I can identify opportunity before the next person identifies it, I can act quicker, tie it up before the next guy realizes that he should have done what I did, right? So that's kind of really what I'm focusing on is trying to get access to stuff before other people have access to it. So, a lot of that's, having good relationships. But even having great relationships, there's, a lot of fierce competitors out in the marketplace. Look at guys like Nightvest or Madeira or, Presidium, or there's, several other guys out there in Dallas Fort Worth that are, major players that have, as good a good relationship with all these brokers. So then, on top of that, not just having the good relationship, is being, persistent and consistent about your ability to, communicate and stay in front of these brokers. Because, a lot of this comes down to, I just happened to call this guy 10 minutes after he got the phone with the seller, and I bring something up that jogs his memory, and I'm the first guy that sees it, and a lot of it's just kind of being at the right place at the right time, and, creating your own luck from that perspective. And if, my competitor from one of the other firms was on the phone with them instead of me, he would have got that look instead of me getting the look. So, it's not only about having a good relationship, but it's also about being consistent and showing up on a regular basis. And all these marketed deals, when they're kind of going, and you got a bunch of groups kind of banging it out, I've been successful in a few times having the broker recommend, hey, there's 3 groups, kind of all very similar price and terms. Why don't you give, SPI an exclusive counter and saying, hey, SPI, if you meet, this price on these terms, we're going to go with you, versus, kind of going to the second and third round of the best and final, kind of slugging it out. So that's one of the deals that we're buying right now, was that exact scenario. I just had a better reputation and relationship with the broker that he recommended the counter my group first. And then, I was going to pay it or I wasn't, but we were able to fortunately pay the price and the terms and win the deal. So that's kind of, what I think about kind of having that last call, that last little edge on a marketed deal. So I don't know, Paul, I forgot what your question was. So does that answer your question? Those are some
well, my question really is the underlying piece for somebody that's brand new into the multifamily business. Michael Becker, did you sell your soul to the devil to get 10,000 doors? Meaning that you made these relationships with these brokers and the investors and the owners. I mean, you worked hard. And a lot of people don't understand the amount of effort it takes to become a deal sponsor. And, just give me, by finishing up this conversation, give me 1 or 2, 3 things that you do on a consistent basis that maybe some of your other competitors at the time that they were just, that you were starting out, they weren't doing, that you think was a material change of you getting the deal versus them getting the deal?
Yeah, I just show up consistently, very persistent. I'm not a jerk, I'm not rude. I don't try to talk down to brokers, and as simple and stupid as that sounds, a lot of people do that stuff, and they try to prove that they're smarter than the broker at the expense of or the seller or whoever, at the expense of their ability to get the deal. So I don't, that's always counterproductive, trying to prove how smart you are. So you're going to prove how smart you are, that so much so that you don't win any deal. So that seems stupid to me. I go to a lot of the events. I get in the position now, I get invited to a lot of events, but you get a couple of deals. I mean, most anyone in town can get invited to a lot of the conferences that are now starting to kind of kick up again. And speaking of which, we probably should talk about the Old Capital next speaker series at the end of the show. So, show up, I go to the events, and then you spend a little bit of time with these people. And I think, little things like when you get started, maybe you don't have the jack to go get invited to the boondoggle to go golf or shoot guns or whatever the boondoggle of the day is. But if you do get invited to those things, I highly recommend that you go, even if you don't like to golf or shoot guns or whatever, because you'll get to go spend some time with these brokers in a foreign, not non-home turf. You go away somewhere, you're kind of trapped away for a day or so, and you get a lot of valuable time to kind of form a good relationship with them. And at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff's kind of, soft skills, and they like you. They're more likely to push for you with their client, the seller, to choose you over the next person, and maybe, guide you to the terms that you need to get to, or the price that you need to get to win the deal. So it's a lot of like little things, Paul, that kind of over time have kind of added up into your favor. And then, where I'm in my career now, it's just all about maximizing my advantage to the most I can and get as many deals as I can, because I put my time in, and, it's nights and weekends. It's, doing a lot of stuff. It's going out of town. It's time away from the family. And, it's sacrifices. A lot of it's fun to me, but a lot of it's also sacrifices. So if you're not willing to sacrifice a little bit of time and effort and energy, then you're not gonna get the results that you want.
And that's certainly true. I mean, you certainly are a driver for your success. And it shows in the amount of business you do and the relationships you have. Last question before this is the second to last question, or it's the last question, is there's a lot of testosterone, a lot of men in this business. What's your take if you're a woman? How do you break into this business? I know it's tough from the male perspective to try to get in, but what's your perspective for females trying to get in? Because maybe they want to shoot guns and maybe they want to play golf, but sometimes it's kind of awkward if you're trying to become a female sponsor of these deals. How do you get in to talk with a lot of these male counterparts?
Yeah, I think certainly it's a lot more male-dominated industry than there's not as many females in there. So that's maybe seemingly it's hard for me to look at it from that perspective, because I don't have that perspective, because I'm a white male in this business, and there's a lot of us in this business. So whether you're minority or you're woman or whatever it is, I think that could be, certainly intimidating and maybe feel like it's a little bit of a disadvantage, or kind of the good old boys club. And to a certain extent, it probably is. But on the flip side of that is, the women that are in the business, like Kim Radiker is a good example of that, Paul. There's several other women out there. Anna Simpson's overcome it, and a few other people that we've all done business with over the years, Paul, that when they go out there, they're unique, right? I mean, I could be forgotten pretty easily because I'm just like everybody else, and I think you need to look at your differences as an opportunity to stand apart from the crowd. So you're unique, you're a woman, there's not very many of you. You're gonna be memorable within the business. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, I don't know how much it really matters. At the end of the day, it's about, can you do it? It's a pass-fail test. Can you buy the deal? You cannot. Can you raise the money? Can you get the debt? Or can you not get the money or the debt? So that's kind of first and foremost about it. And then, I do a lot of stuff all the time that I don't like to do, Paul. So, if you got to go out and play golf or shoot some guns or do something, I think, everyone's going to appreciate the effort and the time together. And then it's not really about the activity that you necessarily do if you go to one of these things. It's about, the conversation that you have along the way when you're in the middle of nowhere and you kind of captive at this event. You get some opportunity to talk about deals to form that relationship. So, even if it's not something you want to do, I think you maybe take advantage of that, or maybe even be proactive and ask to be invited to this event or that event. Go to the fight night, go to the black tie brawl, all these little kind of events that a lot of us do in the business that historically are kind of male dominated. And I think if a lady goes to it, maybe she wouldn't enjoy necessarily the activity, but then it's not really about the activities, about what, the relationships and talking with people and all that stuff kind of gets you. So I think generally speaking, my perspective is a lot of the ladies tend to be a little bit more timid and a little bit more reserved, and they don't go exactly for what they want and be as direct as some of the male counterparts have been. And, I think that's a mistake. I think you just go at it and you know what you want to get. And, people like Kim and people like Anna, like what I just mentioned, they both have those attributes. They don't take shit off anybody, and they're going to go ask what they want, and they're going to demand respect. And if you don't respect them, then, they're going to run over you. Right. And that's what you need to kind of have an attitude like that in this business. And I think that's certainly part of it. And the world is the way it is. And you gotta just adapt and react to the environment that you're in. And being timid isn't going to be rewarded in this business. So I think being, just direct and straightforward and seeking what you want, even if it's uncomfortable, is what you need to do to be successful.
Well, fantastic. Some great advice to some of the ladies out there that want to get into the business and want to stand apart from their male counterparts. And again, Kim Radiker and Anna Simpson and some of the ladies that we have done business with, they're just spectacular operators and spectacular builders of teams. We'd be more happy to put you in contact with them to kind of have them mentor you a little bit and, talk with you. They're more than happy to share their advice to somebody getting into the multifamily business. So, Michael, we have failed to mention, if you could do me a favor, what does SPI do and what do you do for SPI?
So, SPI Advisory is the company I run. Our primary focus, Paul, is really about putting together high quality opportunities and raising capital for them in the Texas markets. Historically, that's Fort Worth and Austin. And here lately, we moved into San Antonio, and we got a couple of deals we're working on right now in San Antonio. So we're real excited about that market and the opportunity. So if people want to find out more information about us or potentially get on our list and learn about future opportunities, the best way is simply go to a company's website. That's www.spiadvisory.com. It's SPI like spy advisory.com. There's a contact us form on the page. You fill that out, and we're always happy to get you on lists and set out some information about potentially investing with us. And as we talked about for many episodes here, and I'll say it again here, really bullish on multifamily as a whole for the next foreseeable future. And specifically Texas, the three markets in Texas that we participate in are Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and extremely bullish in those three markets. I think that the winds that are back for many, many years, and I encourage you guys to consider getting involved and getting a little bit of exposure in the multifamily if you haven't done so already.
I love it. Okay, it was Michael Becker, smartest guy in the room. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.